You're running a race nobody asked you to run, trying to win a prize you don't even want, and you're exhausted because the finish line keeps moving. That's what living for other people's approval does. It puts you on a treadmill going nowhere fast. You work harder, achieve more, impress them today, and tomorrow they're already looking at someone else, expecting something different, raising the bar higher. Meanwhile, the real race, the one you were actually designed to run, is happening somewhere else entirely, and you're missing it. You're missing your own life, not because you're lazy or incompetent, but because you're busy being successful at the wrong thing. You're climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong building. And every rung you climb takes you further from where you're supposed to be. You know what breaks my heart? When I attend funerals and listen to eulogies about people who spent their entire existence trying to become what others wanted them to be. They die with their real gifts still wrapped up inside them. They leave this earth without ever showing the world who they truly were. And here's the tragedy: nobody at that funeral even knows what was lost. They're celebrating a version of that person that was manufactured, edited, and approved by everyone except the person lying in that casket right now, as you're hearing these words. There are millions of people walking around as frauds, not criminals, not liars in the traditional sense, but people who have become so skilled at being what others expect that they've forgotten who they actually are. They wake up every morning and put on a costume. They rehearse their lines. They perform their roles. And when they go to bed at night, they're exhausted, not from doing meaningful work, but from the tireless effort of maintaining an illusion. This is the greatest theft happening in our world today. Not robbery at gunpoint, not corruption in high places. The greatest theft is when a human being allows other people to steal their authenticity, their originality, their unique expression of life. When you live to impress others, you're essentially handing them the pen and letting them write your story. You become the actor in a script you didn't write, playing a character you never auditioned for, in a production that will never satisfy your soul. Let me tell you about a man named Rashid. He lived in Dubai, and by every external measure, he was extraordinarily successful. Chief executive officer of a multinational corporation, 3 luxury cars, a penthouse with a view that cost more per month than most people earn in a year. His name appeared in business magazines. People wanted photographs with him at conferences. Young professionals studied his career trajectory like it was a roadmap to heaven. But Rashid had a problem. At 52 years old, sitting in his corner office on the 43rd floor, he realized something terrifying. He had no idea who he was. None. If you had asked him what he genuinely loved, what made his heart come alive when nobody was watching, he couldn't answer. His entire adult life had been constructed around one question: what will make them respect me? First, it was his father, a traditional man who believed success meant medicine, engineering, or business. So Rashid abandoned his early love for architecture and design. Then it was his professors. He studied what impressed them. Then his colleagues. He adopted their habits, their vocabulary, their lunch preferences. Then his wife's family, old money people who had expectations about how a son-in-law should behave. Then the board of directors, then the shareholders. Then the business magazines. Rashid told me something I'll never forget. He said, I became so good at reading what people wanted from me that I turned into a chameleon. And you know what happens to a chameleon? It changes colors so many times that it forgets what color it was born to be. At 52, this man was having what people call a breakdown. I call it a breakthrough. His body was forcing him to stop because his soul was suffocating. The panic attacks, the insomnia, the feeling that he was watching his own life from outside his body. These weren't weaknesses. These were alarm systems. His authentic self was screaming from underneath all those layers of performance, trying to be heard before it was too late. Here's what most people don't understand about living for other people's approval. It's not sustainable. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You can keep pouring and pouring, but you'll never fill it up. Because human approval is conditional, temporary, and constantly changing. What impresses people today bores them tomorrow. The standards keep shifting. The goalpost keeps moving. You run faster and faster on a treadmill that goes nowhere. And here's the really devastating part. Even when you succeed at impressing them, even when you get the applause, the promotion, the recognition, the award, there's this hollow feeling inside. Because deep down, you know it's not really you they're celebrating. They're celebrating the performance. They're applauding the mask. And you're standing there smiling while your real self is locked in a prison, watching through the bars, wondering if anyone will ever know it exists. The exhaustion of this lifestyle is unbearable. You're essentially living multiple lives simultaneously. There's the version of you at work, professional, competent, using the right jargon, laughing at the right jokes. There's the version of you with your family, dutiful, playing the role they assigned you decades ago. There's the version of you with friends, fun, agreeable, never too controversial. There's the social media version, carefully curated, strategically posted, designed for maximum validation. And somewhere buried beneath all these versions is the real you. The one who never gets oxygen, never gets expression, never gets to live. This is not freedom. This is slavery with better furniture. You're imprisoned by the opinions of people who are themselves imprisoned by someone else's opinions. You're seeking validation from people who are desperately seeking validation from others. It's a pyramid scheme of approval where nobody at any level is actually satisfied. But everyone keeps playing the game because they don't know there's an alternative. The saddest part, most people will live their entire lives this way and never question it. They'll reach the end, and in those final moments of clarity that often come before death, they'll realize they never actually lived their own life. They were extras in everyone else's story. They spent their precious, unrepeatable, finite existence trying to get people to like a version of themselves that wasn't even real now. You might be wondering, how does this happen? How do we go from being authentic children who express exactly what we feel to becoming these calculated performers, constantly editing ourselves for an audience? The answer is both simple and complex. It starts early, much earlier than you think. Watch a 3-year-old child. That child doesn't care what you think about their dancing. They don't ask permission to sing loudly. They don't check if their outfit matches before they wear their superhero cape to the grocery store. They exist in pure, unfiltered authenticity. But then something shifts. The programming begins. Don't do that. What will people think? That's often the first sentence that plants the seed. A parent, usually with good intentions, starts teaching the child that other people's opinions matter more than their own expression. Sit still in church, people are watching. Don't ask questions, you're embarrassing me. You can't wear that, what will the neighbors say? Every single one of these statements is a brick in the prison we're building around that child's authentic self. Then comes the education system. Now, I'm not against education, knowledge is power. But most educational structures are designed to produce conformity, not originality. Students learn very quickly that the reward doesn't go to the one who thinks differently. It goes to the one who gives the answer the teacher wants to hear. You're graded on your ability to memorize and regurgitate information that someone else decided was important. Creative thinking. That's fine, as long as it stays within the acceptable boundaries. Challenge the system. That's called being disruptive by the time that child becomes a teenager. The conditioning is complete. Their entire identity is now wrapped up in what their peers think. They'll wear clothes that make them uncomfortable because that's what's popular. They'll hide their real interests because those interests aren't cool. They'll pretend to like music they hate, watch shows that bore them, and laugh at jokes that aren't funny, all to fit in, all to be accepted, all to avoid the most terrifying experience a teenager can face, being different. Because even though your ideal belief of a significant other is the most strict of all the ideas, and here's where it gets really dangerous. We start measuring ourselves against other people. We look at their lives and use them as the standard for our own. She has more followers than me, I must be doing something wrong. He got promoted before me, I'm falling behind. Their house is bigger, their car is newer, their children are more accomplished, their vacation photos are more exotic. We're constantly comparing, constantly measuring, constantly finding ourselves deficient because we're using someone else's ruler. Let me tell you about Yuki. She lived in Tokyo, and from the age of 7, everyone knew she had a gift. When she picked up a paintbrush, something magical happened. Colors came alive on canvas in ways that made people stop and stare. Her teachers said she was exceptional. Her parents enrolled her in the best art schools. By the time she was 25, Yuki was a professional artist, and her work was being shown in galleries across Asia. But here's what nobody knew. Yuki hated every single painting she created professionally. Every single one. Because she wasn't painting what was in her heart. She was painting what would win awards. She was creating what critics would praise. She studied what sold at auctions and reproduced those styles. She painted what gallery owners said collectors wanted. Her brush strokes became calculated. Her color choices became strategic. Her art became a product designed to impress people she'd never met. For 15 years, she did this. 15 years of creating beautiful paintings that meant absolutely nothing to her. Her work hung in museums and private collections around the world, but she felt like a fraud. She would stand at her exhibitions, smiling as people praised her technique, her vision, her unique voice. There was only the echo of what others wanted to hear. Then, at 40 years old, Yuki was diagnosed with a serious illness. The kind that makes you confront your mortality. The kind that strips away all the nonsense and forces you to face the truth. And in that hospital bed, waiting for test results, she had a moment of devastating clarity. She realized that if she died, the world would have hundreds of her paintings, but none of them would be hers. None of them would carry what was actually inside her soul. She survived, and the first thing she did when she got home was clear out her studio. She stopped taking commissions. She stopped caring about critics. She stopped painting for awards. And for the first time in 15 years, she painted what she actually wanted to paint. Raw, unpolished, unmarketable, true. You know what happened? Her career tanked. Gallery owners dropped her. Critics said she'd lost her touch. Her prices fell. People who had celebrated her before now said she was going through a phase, that she'd ruined her potential. But Yuki told me something profound. She said, I would rather be a poor artist painting my truth than a rich artist painting everyone else's expectations. This is the trap we all fall into. We think there's a scoreboard somewhere, and we think other people are keeping score. So we play the game by rules we never agreed to, chasing goals we never set, trying to win a prize we don't even want. We sacrifice what's real for what's impressive. We trade authenticity for approval. And the devastating part is that the approval never comes in a way that satisfies us, because it's not really us they're approving. You can't win a game where the rules change based on who's watching. You can't build a stable life on the unstable foundation of other people's opinions. Their opinions will shift like sand. What they praise today, they'll criticize tomorrow. What makes them applaud this year will bore them next year. You're chasing a moving target while standing on shifting ground, and wondering why you feel so exhausted and unfulfilled. So how do we break free from this prison? How do we stop this exhausting performance and start living from a place of truth? The first step is understanding something critical. You have an original assignment, not a borrowed one, not one that someone handed down to you, not one that looks good on paper or sounds impressive at dinner parties. An original assignment that was placed inside you before you took your first breath. Every single person born on this planet comes with a unique combination of gifts, talents, passions, and purposes that nobody else carries in exactly the same way. Your fingerprints are unique. Your DNA is unique. And your assignment is unique. But here's the problem. Most people never complete their assignment because they're too busy completing someone else's. Your parents had dreams. Those are their dreams, not yours. Your culture has expectations. Those are their expectations, not your calling. Your friends have opinions about what you should do. Those are their opinions, not your purpose. Society has definitions of success. Those are their definitions, not your destiny. And until you separate what belongs to you from what belongs to them, you'll spend your entire life working on the wrong project. I need you to understand something profound. Your purpose isn't about you. It's about what you were sent here to fix, to build, to heal, to create, to solve. When you're living in your authentic purpose, you're not trying to impress anyone. You're trying to impact everyone. There's a massive difference. Impression is about you getting validation. Impact is about others getting transformation. Think about it this way. A seed doesn't try to impress the soil. It doesn't perform for the rain. It doesn't compete with other seeds to see who can look better while buried in dirt. The seed just does what it was designed to do. It breaks open, sends roots down, pushes, shoots up, and becomes what it was meant to be. Nobody applauds during this process. Nobody gives awards. But eventually, that seed becomes a tree that provides shade, fruit, oxygen, and shelter. That's impact. That's purpose. That's what happens when something lives according to its original design instead of trying to be something else. Let me tell you about Kofi. He was a neurosurgeon in Accra, Ghana. Brilliant man. Top of his class in medical school. Trained in Europe, came back home and built a reputation as one of the finest surgeons in West Africa. His parents were so proud they could burst. His father, a retired teacher, would introduce him to everyone as my son, the doctor. His mother kept newspaper clippings of every article written about him. When he walked into rooms, people treated him with reverence. But Kofi had a secret. He hated surgery, not disliked, hated. The smell of the operating room made him nauseous. The pressure of holding someone's life in his hands gave him nightmares. He was good at it, excellent. Actually, but being good at something doesn't mean you're supposed to do it. Every day he put on those scrubs, felt like putting on a costume for a play he never wanted to be in. What Kofi actually loved, what made him come alive, was agriculture. Since he was a boy, he'd been fascinated by how things grow. He could spend hours learning about soil composition, crop rotation, sustainable farming techniques. He would read agricultural journals the way other doctors read medical research. But every time he mentioned this interest, people laughed. You didn't become a neurosurgeon to play in dirt, they'd say at 43 years old, after 20 years of surgery. Kofi made a decision that shocked everyone. He left his practice. He sold his house in the city. He moved back to his village and started farming. Not hobby farming, serious, scientific, innovative agriculture. His parents were devastated. His colleagues thought he'd lost his mind. His wife almost left him. People in his village whispered that he must have done something wrong, that maybe he lost his medical license. Because why else would a successful doctor become a farmer? The first 2 years were brutal. Kofi faced failure after failure. Crops died, techniques didn't work, money ran out, people mocked him, his father stopped speaking to him. But something interesting happened. Kofi was happy. For the first time in 2 decades, he woke up excited about his day. He was solving problems that mattered to him. He was creating something that felt right in his soul. Then the breakthrough came. Kofi developed a farming system that combined traditional methods with modern technology. It was sustainable, affordable, and dramatically increased crop yields. He started teaching other farmers. Within 5 years, his methods had spread across 12 villages. Families who had struggled with food security for generations were now producing surplus crops. Children who had been malnourished were thriving. Economic conditions in those communities completely transformed today. Kofi's agricultural innovations have impacted over 50,000 families across Ghana and neighboring countries. Universities study his methods. Governments consult him on food security policies. But here is what Kofi told me that I'll never forget. He said, as a surgeon, I've saved maybe 300 lives in 20 years. As a farmer, I've fed 50,000 families. But more importantly, as a surgeon, I was dying inside while keeping others alive. As a farmer, I'm alive while helping others live. That's the difference between doing what impresses people and doing what you were born to do. You see, when Kofi was trying to impress his parents, his colleagues, his society, he was successful but unfulfilled. When he stopped seeking their approval and started living his authentic assignment, he faced ridicule but found fulfillment. And eventually, the impact of his authentic work surpassed anything he could have achieved while living someone else's dream. So here we are. You've heard the stories, you've seen the patterns, you understand the problem. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? Because understanding without action is just sophisticated procrastination. You can know all this and still spend the rest of your life trapped in the same prison, performing for the same audience, seeking the same approval that will never satisfy you. The first thing you need to do is identify whose voice is controlling your decisions. Sit down with a piece of paper and write out the major choices you've made in the last 5 years. Your career, where you live, how you spend your money, how you spend your time, your relationships. Now, next to each decision, write whose approval you were seeking when you made it. Be brutally honest. Was it your own conviction? Or were you trying to please your parents, impress your peers, meet society's expectations? Prove something to someone who doubted you. This exercise is uncomfortable because most people discover that they're not actually living their own life. They're living a compilation of other people's expectations. Your job title might be impressive to your father, but does it fulfill you? Your house might be in the right neighborhood according to your friends, but does it feel like home? Your lifestyle might look successful on social media, but does it align with your values? These are the questions that separate authentic living from performance living. Here's what I need you to understand. Making the shift from external validation to internal validation requires courage. Real courage. Not the kind of courage that's celebrated in movies, but the kind that happens in quiet moments when you choose truth over approval. It's the courage to disappoint people. And that's where most people get stuck. They'd rather betray themselves than disappoint others. But think about this carefully. When you live to please others, you're guaranteeing that someone will always be disappointed. And that someone is you. You're disappointing yourself every single day. You're betraying your own gifts, ignoring your own voice, suffocating your own purpose. So the question isn't whether someone will be disappointed. The question is, who deserves to be disappointed less, them or you? Your parents will recover from their disappointment when you choose a different career path. Your friends will adjust when you stop being who they expect you to be. Your colleagues will find someone else to gossip about when you make an unconventional choice. But you only get one life, one chance, one opportunity to be who you were created to be. You don't recover from wasting that. Now, I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow without a plan. I'm not saying blow up your life in a dramatic gesture. What I'm saying is start making decisions based on your own internal compass instead of other people's applause. Start small if you need to. Say no to something you've always said yes to just because people expected it. Express an opinion that's actually yours instead of echoing what's safe. Pursue an interest that brings you joy even if nobody else understands it. Here's what happens when you start living authentically. You lose some people. That's guaranteed. Some people are only in your life because of the version of you that you perform for them. When you stop performing, they leave. And that's not a loss. That's clarity. Those people were never really with you anyway. They were with the mask you wore. Let them go. The right people, the ones who are supposed to walk with you, they'll be attracted to your authenticity, not your performance. You also need to understand the difference between your legacy and your reputation. Your reputation is what people say about you while you're alive. Your legacy is what remains after you're gone. Most people sacrifice their legacy trying to protect their reputation. They make safe choices to maintain their image. They stay quiet to keep peace. They conform to keep approval. And in the process, they ensure that their life won't matter beyond their funeral. Legacy is built when you stop asking, what will people think? And start asking, what needs to exist because I was here? What problem are you solving? What are you creating? What are you building? What are you healing? What are you changing? These questions produce legacy. The other questions just produce anxiety. I want you to do something. Close your eyes and fast forward to the end of your life. You're lying in a bed, and you know these are your final days. Your children, grandchildren, friends are gathered around. What do you want them to say about how you lived? Not what you accomplished in terms of titles and possessions, but who you were, what you stood for, what you gave, what you changed, what you had the courage to be. Now ask yourself, is the life you're currently living going to produce that eulogy? If you died today, would people be talking about your authentic self or your performed self? Would they be celebrating the real you or the version you manufactured for their approval? This isn't meant to be morbid. This is meant to be clarifying. Because most people wait until they're on their deathbed to have this clarity, and by then, it's too late to do anything about it. The urgency is now, not tomorrow, not after you get the promotion, not after your kids grow up, not after you retire, not after things settle down. Now, today, this moment. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. That's not pessimism. That's reality. People go to sleep healthy and don't wake up. People leave for work and don't come home. Life is fragile and finite and absolutely unpromising about giving you more time. So what are you waiting for? Permission. You're not going to get it. Nobody's going to give you permission to stop impressing them and stop being yourself. Approval, you're not going to get that either. Not from everyone. Not all the time. The perfect moment. It doesn't exist. The perfect moment is the one where you decide that your life is too valuable to waste performing for people who aren't even paying attention. Remember Rashid? Sitting in that corner office, realizing at 52 that he'd lost himself. He made a choice. He stepped down from that position. He faced the shock, the judgment, the gossip. People said he was having a breakdown, but he was actually having a breakthrough. Today, he's an architectural consultant working on sustainable housing projects in underprivileged communities. He makes a fraction of what he used to make. He drives a regular car. His name doesn't appear in magazines, but he knows who he is. And he's using his real gifts to create real impact. Remember Yuki, the artist who painted for critics instead of from her heart. She chose authenticity over acclaim. Her bank account got smaller, but her soul got larger. She paints what's true now. And while fewer people buy her work, the right people find it. And those people don't just buy paintings. They buy pieces of genuine human expression. And that matters in ways that awards never could. Remember Kofi, the surgeon who became a farmer. He disappointed everyone to fulfill his purpose. And now, his purpose is feeding nations. But even if it wasn't, even if he'd stayed a small farmer in one village helping just a few families, it would still be worth it. Because he'd be living his truth instead of their expectations. These aren't exceptional people, they're regular people who made exceptional choices. They chose themselves, not in a selfish way, but in a purposeful way. They stopped asking, what will make them proud of me? And started asking, what was I born to do? That same choice is in front of you right now. You can close this moment and go back to the performance. Put the mask back on. Keep playing the role. Keep seeking the approval. Keep measuring yourself by their standards. Keep dying slowly inside while looking successful outside. That's one option. And honestly, most people will choose it because it's familiar and safe. Or you can decide that today is the day you stop auditioning for a life you don't even want. Today is the day you stop giving other people editing rights to your story. Today is the day you reclaim your voice, your gifts, your purpose, your authentic self. That's the other option. And it's terrifying because it means walking away from guaranteed approval into uncertain authenticity. But here's what I know after decades of watching human beings waste their potential and a few brave souls reclaim it. The fear of being yourself is nowhere near as painful as the regret of never trying. The discomfort of disappointing others is temporary. The devastation of disappointing yourself is permanent. Your life is not a rehearsal. This is not a practice run. You don't get to do it over. Every day you spend being someone else is a day you can never get back. Every choice you make to impress rather than impact is a choice that shapes your legacy. And one day, sooner than you think, you'll run out of days, you'll run out of choices. And the only question that will matter is, did you live your life or did you perform someone else? The answer to that question is being written right now. Not tomorrow, now. In this moment, in the next decision you make, in whether you choose courage or comfort, truth or approval, your authentic assignment or their comfortable expectations. Don't waste your life trying to impress people who are too busy trying to impress others to even notice your effort. Don't trade your irreplaceable gifts for their irreplaceable applause. Don't sacrifice what's eternal for what's temporary. Be yourself, your real self, your purposed self, your authentic, original, unrepeatable self. That's not just the path to fulfillment. That's the path to freedom. And that freedom is waiting for you the moment you decide you're worth more than their approval. The moment you decide your purpose matters more than their opinions. The moment you decide to stop performing and start living. That moment can be now. Let it be now.